Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Dailies on Aqua Television, the program that keeps you updated with the happenings in Nigeria, a paper review. Today being the 26th of July 2024, we have quite a number of stories we would love to look at, as we're seeing that the Ohanaeze president passed on at the age of 82, and we're seeing Tinubu saying that his death is an irreplaceable loss. Buhari, Abbas, and many others are also sending in their condolences to the Indebo as well as the immediate family. Do remember, you can drop your comment on Facebook, YouTube, and we will, see how we can provide solutions to some of these things. I'll be doing the program alongside Rachel Tansy. Good morning.
Morning, Sally.
All right. We will go straight into the papers, starting with this day newspaper.
The big story on this day: traditional rulers, clerics, ulamas mobilize against hardship protests. The writer says Oba of Benin calls for patience. Only of Ife, Sultan, other traditional rulers of Afenifere sue for caution. Tinubu says protest sponsors who don't love Nigeria have alternative passports. Insists no government will tolerate violent protests. Says he has no cabal, election self-sponsored. Confident economy on steady recovery path. Governors Code NSA says protest gaining momentum. Military wants DSS uncovers sponsors. You can start with the details on the front page. Federal government surpassed half-year non-oil revenue by 30%, exited ways and means trap. This is coming from Wale Edun. Says debt service costs dipped from 97% to 68%. Insists subsidy on PMS technically gone. Government set to float $500 million dominated local bond, and we have cites impediments to immediate implementation of Supreme Court verdict on local government. You can find details on page 5. On local government autonomy, INEC has capacity to conduct LG polls, says the chairman. Ohanaeze president Awayanwu passes at 82. Tinubu declares dead irreparable loss. Buhari, Abbas, Umba, Abiodun, Obi, Mon. We have a picture story where we can see UTM FLNG Limited Board of Directors. The last story on the paper: Deputy Senate President hails Tinubu over Northwest Development Commission bill assent. Details can be found on page 8, and that's all the news on this day newspaper.
A look at the Vanguard newspaper. Federal government exceed Ways and Means debt down 15.7% to $91 billion, coming from Edu. Billionaire kidnapper untold story of Henry, exploit as Nollywood actor and producer. More detail of that can be found on page 7. As well, here with Ohanaeze President General Emmanuel Inyawawu dies at 81. Tinubu APC governors meet. We can see a cross-section of the people in attendance, and this meeting held yesterday at the presidential villa. And on protest, which is the big story, no government will condone destruction of lives and properties, coming from Tinubu. Meets APC governors, monarchs in Aso Rock. Don't allow it to be hijacked. Oni tells organizers, we will listen to youth, Dean of Ibo. And then we have listen to words of wisdom from government. Amy of Zauzau is talking about that. DSS identifies sponsors, warn against action. FCT unavailable for August 1st protests, coming from Wike. We are not part of August 1st protests, coming from the TUC. Shelf plan protests for sake of economy, Ojikado tells the youth. All of these can be found on page 5. Alert sabotage, Senate summons petroleum finance ministers, NNPCL, CBN, MPA, and others concerning that. 5 die, others injured in Lagos building collapse. And on sport, Super Falcon father in Olympics opening match, that you can read on page 48. And we also have a column on Owelafa where he is talking about humanity needs to move forward by eradicating colonialism, if quite complex decolonization process in apartheid South Africa could be negotiated, so can the process in other colonies. So you can read more detail of what he's saying, and that's all on Vanguard newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, on planned August 1st protest, we won't allow extreme violence, anarchy, Tinubu Defense Headquarters DSS warns. The writer says protesters target violent outcome for regime change, coming from Ufunaya. They want to create a state of war, statement from military. NSC assures governors of Fenifere, TUC cautions Nigerians. Don't detain suspects beyond prescribed time, AGF warns security agency. Ohaneze leader Wanyan dies at 82 tenable months. Nigeria's debt service plummet as revenue surges. On sports and Olympics, hard fighting Super Falcons lose to Brazil in group opener. Senate summons Lopoburi, NNPCL, NMDPRA, and Dangote concerning the sabotage and the ongoing feud. You can start with the details on the front page. INEC has capacity to conduct LG polls and assurance coming from the chairman Yakubu. 5 kills cause injured in fresh Lagos building collapse. 110 billion naira youth investment fund portal ready for access soon, and assurance from the minister. 2,000 bags of federal government rice diverted in Katsina. More details can be found on page 14. We have troops neutralize 100 bandits in Niger. Details can be found on page 6. We have a cross section of pictures. One where we can see the FCT minister Nyesom Wike in the middle and coordinator Satellite Town Development Department Abdul Kadi inspecting road construction in Saburi community in Abuja. This happened yesterday, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On Daily Independent, federal government decision to flood Naira reason for economic hardship coming from the Trade Union Congress. Demands police protection for the hashtag End Bad Governance protesters. SGFC's federal government spent $1.5 billion to protect oil installation in 4 years. We have identified sponsors of planned nationwide protests coming from the DSS. No to protests that lead to destruction of lives and property. Detail can be found in the paper, and this is coming from the president. Military intelligence envisaged it may lead to anarchy, coming from the DMO director. Says protesters targeting worship centers, market, critical assets, and others. And we have the Middle Belt Forum warn against sponsoring pro-government protesters to cause anarchy. More detail can be found on page 29. Senate assures on exposing economic saboteurs in petroleum sector, being searchlight on NMDPRA overpayment to transporters. NSA tax governors on growing momentum over planned protests. Tell them prevailing hardship demands state attention. Aircraft wet licensing dragging down Nigerians' aviation growth, coming from Kiamo. And we have Tinubu, Imba, and others mourning the death of the Ohaneze president, that you can find on page 7. INEC has capacity to conduct local government elections, says Yakubu. Downside of the paper, police green initiative will boost capacity to maintain law and order, coming from Tinubu. We have the pictures here where we can see the president and some monarchs of various places, more like the royal father of Sokoto, Sultan of Sokoto. As well, we can see the Oni of Ife during the presidential meeting with the traditional rulers at the presidential villa yesterday. And that's all in Daily Independent newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, planned protest. Defense Headquarters DSS warn against anarchy, identify sponsors. It's an invitation to anarchy, reign of terror, coming from the Defense Headquarters. Funding lines identified, coming from the DSS, says plan afoot to hijack protests and cause chaos. Traditional rulers meet with Tinubu, plead for peace, patience, or your Lagos government holds security stakeholders meeting. I participate participated in peaceful protests for democracy. I believe the president is defending himself. You can find all the details on page 2. On local government autonomy, teachers' salaries better paid by states, coming from NUT. Ohaneze Indibu President Awanyanwu dies at 82, Tinubu orders 1. INEC will take over responsibility of conduct of LG elections if backed by law, statement from Yakubu. Malala Fund invests $7.8 million in girl child programs in Nigeria. Federal government spends $1.5 billion to protect oil installations in 4 years, a report from the SGF. Nigeria records fastest economic growth in 6 years in the first quarter of 2024, a report from Edun says Tinubu's reform yielding results. Federal government's main focus is to reduce food prices. Government pays 7.3 trillion naira waste and means debt. All the details can be found on page 6. 6 workers die as building under construction collapses in Lagos. Cut to hear Edo government suit challenging Shaibu's reinstatement September 24th, and we have a picture story where we can see the finance minister alongside the director general for the debt management office. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
A New Telegraph newspaper on allocation. Federal government hits brick wall over implementation of local government autonomy. Pays 7.3 trillion naira to exceed ways and means. And still the issue of the PMS value of import from Malta hits $2.317 billion. More detail on page 8. An issue of oil theft. Nigeria lost almost $10 billion in 7 months, coming from Abbas, and we're seeing there is senator move to cause chaos and extreme violence coming from DSS. Why the federal government releases June fake allocation to states by Edu. Nigeria identifies wet license others as obstacle to carriers' growth. You can read that on page 29. August 1st hardship protest. Tinubu APC governors meet traditional rulers in Asu Rock. Oni Afenifere calls for caution. Shelf the planned strike for sake of economy, Senator Kalu tells the youth. TUC demands police protection for protesters as union and group put members on standby. Why will we protest by the Southeast youth? Wike bans action in Abuja. No government will allow destructive demonstration, Tinubu tell the new U.S. ambassador. More detail for in the paper. And on the issue of rivers crisis, Fubara, Wike's camp intensify battle for supremacy. We have capacity to conduct local government election, coming from INEC. AGF cautions security agent against illegal detention of suspect. Customs sees 11.2 billion naira illicit drugs at Uni Port. Detail found on page 6. Petroleum sector probe. Senate threatening arrest warrant against defaulters. Summon Petroleum Minister, NNPC Limited, CBN, MPA and others says there won't be sacred cows. As well, we've seen studies that link moderate drinking to health benefits and flood. Detail found on page 26. And the picture story of the president with the new U.S. ambassador. And that's all a New Telegraph newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, Tinubu rallies NSA monarchs as hunger protest looms. The writer says president meets APC governors only Sultan clerics as planned protest gains momentum. Opposition charges Tinubu to address Nigerians. Army DSS alleged plot to force regime change. On probe, National Assembly summons NNPC Dangote over $10 billion oil theft. Tinubu may sign 70,000 naira minimum wage bill next week. 16 more state-owned schools get student loan approval. Details can be found on page 43. We have factional kingmaker oppose fresh Alafin selection process. Police station rape. NGOs condemn pace of investigation. Lagos begins probe of 5 killed in building collapse. And we have a cross-section of pictures where we can see from left to right President Bola Tinubu, the Sultan of Sokoto Mohammed Saad Abubakar III, and Oni of Ife Oba Adeyeye Ogunwumi, and during President Tinubu's meeting with traditional rulers led by the Sultan of Sokoto and Oni of Ife at the presidential villa in Abuja. This took place yesterday, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
On Daily News Herb newspaper, DSS identifies hashtag End Bad Governance protests, sponsors and warn against their action. The big story is still talking about the hashtag End Bad Governance. Tinubu make the last-ditch effort to avert the nationwide protests made with governors, traditional rulers and others. We are not part of the planned nationwide protests coming from the trade union organization. Hashtag End Bad Governance protests won't hold in FCT. Wike declares says it's a day we will honor Abuja traditional rulers. More detail found in the paper. Still talking about the planned protests, Oni and other royal fathers urge organizers to embrace dialogue. And we're seeing as well here we have capacity to conduct the local government election. INEC tells the National Assembly. Indume gives condition to stay in APC. I was in my mother's womb for 12 months coming from Obasanjo. Still talking about the protests, hunger protests, we have uncovered plots to hijack protests, unleash mayhem coming from the military. One promoters, protesters, we won't allow you to destroy this country, and that's why they took a step forward where we see that the police is also raiding some of the vulcanizers places to take out tires so that people will not use the tires and start burning. So these are part of the measures that we're seeing the security agency are putting in place to avoid any destruction of properties. And that is the last story here where we see hardship police to seize tires in vulcanizers shops. And that's all on Daily News Herb newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, Ohaneze Indibo PG Manuel Nwayon dies at 82. The big story on the paper, Nigeria's economy on path of recovery. A statement from President Tinubu says, "We will do more to meet the needs of citizens. I have no cabal or sponsors to compensate. Nigeria needs its diaspora expertise in nation building. Troops neutralize 106 terrorists, arrest 164 others in 1 week. Unplanned protests, military will not watch Nigeria thrown into state of anarchy." Coming from the defense headquarters, we've uncovered plan to infiltrate planned protests, says DSS. On local government autonomy, teachers' salaries better paid by states, coming from the NUT. And we have a picture where we can see the scene of collapsed building at Mba Street, Orowo Jobe Estate, Maryland, Lagos. And that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On the Voice of Liberty, which is the next paper, Dangote NNPC rift, Nigerian's petrol import for Malta jumps to 43 times to $1.08 billion, detail found in the paper. Dangote refinery stopped the marketing local industry. Manufacturers Association of Nigeria cautions the federal government. INEC ready, capable of handling local government elections, coming from Professor Yakubu. Renew Kaduna Restoration Group applauds State Assembly Governor Sani for scrapping municipal authorities imposed by El-Rufai. The Renew Kaduna Restoration Group, under the chairmanship of Alhaji Ahmed Ramalan, has expressed gratitude to the Kaduna State of Assembly and Governor Mba Sani for repealing the laws that created the municipal authorities in the state imposed by El-Rufai. You can read more detail of what that entails. Oba of Benin backs Tinubu, encourages Nigerians to endure hunger and sharp protests. Detail found in the paper. CSO religious group demand probe of NNPC and GMD sack. You can read that in the paper. DSS identifies sponsor of August 1st protest, warn against action. We won't condone anarchy in disguise of protests, coming from the army. And I'm just keep seeing we won't condole coming from the soldiers, coming from DSS, coming from every. Of course, nobody's going to condole. We really want a peaceful country. We've had our fair share of what violence has done to us. For some people who live in certain parts, that one crisis after another have been erupting. But then I think, just like we've been saying this, and it seems to be that's the only stories we keep seeing. The fact that right now is where we need to see the police intensifying their effort. I'm happy I'm beginning to see them going down to vulcanizers shops. This is one step, because we know that definitely most time when we see people start burning tires, it's a sign that anarchy and violence is going to, come up. So, but then I need to see where the police will make sure that people are being protected eventually, if the protests will hold. Because one thing for sure is that there's hunger in the land. That is just what it is. And then Nigerians are just hoping that, in as much as the government is moving to make sure that nothing of that nature happen, we're seeing cases. In fact, it's on that day they're trying to acknowledge and celebrate traditional rulers in Abuja. That is their reason for not being part of the protest. But I'm hoping that the government, just like we said previously, this is the time for the government to come in, do what you need to do. We're saying Christina, rice that was meant for people was diverted to where? So these are part of the things that can actually provoke Nigerians, but we hope to see the government playing their part in as much as they're trying to stop those who want to take advantage of the opportunity to cause trouble in the country.
I believe the government have been listening to us, and they are beginning to change how they sound. The police is changing how they sound. The government are changing what they're saying to Nigerians. And rather than making it look like they're looking forward to something more difficult, they are telling us how they plan to make sure protesters are safe. And that is much better than what we were seeing on the papers on Monday. It was almost like we had our security agencies threatening us rather than telling us the measures on which they plan to put in place for the protest to be safe. But starting from yesterday down to today, we are seeing that their narrative and their choices of words are becoming better. We've seen the police telling us, you know what, we are going to seize tires from vulcanizers. That is you telling us you plan to make sure that we are safe, so that in case there are people trying to perpetrate chaos, they won't even have a means. We saw where DSS said they have uncovered a plot to ridicule the protests and all of that. So I believe they are trying to tell us that they are starting to work, and they will, in as much as, well, we don't want you to go on a protest, but we are assuring you that we are doing our job to make sure that if you eventually take on the street, we are going to keep you safe. This is much better than what we saw at the start of the week. So I believe that everybody is doing their job when it comes to these protests. As much as, of course, the government don't want these protests, they are assuring Nigerians that they are on aid. It's one thing for President Bola Tinubu to say the economy is on its recovery path and we want to see it, but we are not seeing it. That's where Nigerians' concern is, that we are not seeing it. But either way, I am seeing a better approach, not only from the government, but from our security agencies and law enforcement officers. So we'll just wait and see what will be the outcome on August 1st. Yes.
Well, and that's all on the Voice of Liberty newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, we have the first half review. Tinubu's government still on course to reduce food prices, leave millions out of poverty. Coming from Wale Adun, dumps ways and means as federal government targets FX from diaspora with issuance of $500 million security in August. Say 600,000 households beneficiaries of dialect transfer program this week alone. More details can be found on page 21. On food security, Osun government acquires 72 new tractors to boost production. ITU ranks Nigeria high in digital transformation readiness. And we have hashtag end bad governance protest. DSS alleges anarchy plot as Lagos government denies oral festival involvement. Airtel Africa's customer base grows to 155.4 million as data usage up 25.1%. PCN shuts 571 illegal pharmacies, medicine shops in Bauchi. I hope that this action be done in every other state, as there are some pharmacy when you see them, you are scared to go in there. However, they still get patronage. So I just hope that this exercise is done nationwide. And that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
And just to re-emphasize on the issue of this, you remember for quite a while now, most of our papers, we've been seeing concern coming from the pharmaceutical companies, concerns coming from hospitals on the fact that people that are going after cheaper drugs.
And even NAFDAC have
of course, and NAFDAC have been talking about their own little of making sure that you get original drugs out where you need to scratch and then you send the number. You don't even need any money. Any phone, you can actually use it to be sure that that drug is actually real. And I've raised my own concern as well, where we see that the number of chemists that we have open, because some of them are not even, I don't even know, they're not qualified.
They are not.
They don't have the qualification to run such a place. And then it baffles me because it's very, very difficult for you to see a veterinary vet being operated by someone who is not a vet doctor. It's extremely difficult. They have license and they are not much. But I wonder, when it comes to human medicine, how comes we're having people running it? You see somebody would just open so and course, and then they are open and then they sell drugs and people patronize it because it's cheaper. So I really think, just like you're saying, it's not just for us to check it in one state. This is where I need every state to be involved to check and make sure that, you know what, any place, whether it's a chemist, whether it's a pharmacy, whatever it is, let us be sure that it's actually being run by the right people, so that we end up seeing more deaths being recorded,
of course,
as a result of,
so that we won't wake up to someone
drugs
consuming any drug and then the pharmacy is not licensed or approved and all of that. And we always have this habit until it's heard that something bad has happened, then all of a sudden the government wakes up. We can talk about the collapsed building, not until we've had casualties and many students lost their lives, and then all of a sudden we now have the government inspecting and discovering 12 others. So I just hope this kind of activity, or the state government and then precisely the PCN in other states, the state chapters, will be able to do this exercise before we hear of anything sad on the papers.
Well, before we continue with the paper review, let's just take a time out to let you through the stories, and when we come back we will continue the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Democracy is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday, 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice.
Welcome back. It's still the dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper. We're seeing DSS being able to uncover those who are sponsoring the violence or talking about the protests that we'll be holding. And as well, we are seeing that the police is also making move, getting tires from vulcanizers just in case for people who would love to cause chaos. And then we are seeing moves as well coming from the president, meeting with governors and traditional rulers to see what he can do to be able to curtail the issue of the protest, as he is saying that he has been part of a protest, but then he never caused violence in whatsoever way. So this is just a way for Nigerians to be careful whatever they wish to do during the protest. I still have Rachel with me. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sally.
All right, let's take a look at another paper, which is the First News newspaper. I protest, but always non-violently, coming from Tinubu. You can find detail of that in the paper. Nation on high alert as protest tension escalate. Security forces issue still warning against planned unrest. Military warn protests could spike Kenya like anarchy. You can read that in the paper. And the DSS is saying sponsors of protests identified, aiming to topple Tinubu's government. Tinubu holds emergency meeting with Sultan Oni, NSA, IGP, APC governors. Traditional rulers urge patience after meeting with the president. Senate invites Dangote, NNPCL, CBN, NIMA, SA orders over alleged economic sabotage. And on 2024 Olympics, Brazil defeat Super Falcons 1-0. And then also we are seeing Ezekwesili to Tinubu's government use planned protests to engage dissatisfied citizens. Building collapse in Lagos, kill 5. INEC ready to handle local government elections, says Yakubu. As well, we're seeing Ohaneze Indibo's president dies. More detail found in the paper, and that's all on First News newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, federal government to issue $500 million domestic bonds. On Olympic, Super Falcons lose opening match to Brazil. Dangote versus regulatory agencies, Senate summons CBN, NNPCL, NPA, NIMASA, and others. Questions raised over sudden importation of $2 billion petroleum products from Malta. Jitters in Europe as 90 refineries risk closure due to Dangote refinery. You can find details on page 3. Tinubu Buhari, Southern governors mourn late Ohaneze Indibo president. More details can be found on page 3. Man claims inflation caused by 1,475 basis point increase in interest rates since 2022, and we must agree that the base point increase have been high. More details can be found on page 11. The big story, hashtag end bad governance in Nigeria protest. Federal government intensify efforts to stop protests. Tinubu 6 traditional rulers, others help to stop protests. We've identified sponsors of protests, funding line coming from the DSS. Kenya-like outcome looms, warns defense headquarters. TUC calls for protection for protesters. National Youth Council puts 104 affiliate members on standby. More details can be found on page 2. Death toll in Lagos, building collapse hits 5. Yakubu expresses confidence in INEC's competence to conduct LG election. Over $1.5 billion spent since 2020 to curb crude oil theft. This is a report from the SGF. On August protest, another chance to save Nigeria, a statement from DJ Switch. We have a picture story recognizing importance of traditional institution, where we can see President Bola Tinubu together with the Sultan of Sokoto and then the Oni of Ife. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, Development Commission without development. Region citizens languish amid proliferation of political SPVs. In other news, more regions demand need to develop commission, and this is where we're seeing people raising the concern. We're having a development commission, yet we do not have development coming up. You can read detail of that in the paper. Planned protests, military warns against violence as DSS reveals plot to cause chaos. That is, they were able to get the people planning that. Federal government lost $10 billion to oil theft vandalism in 7 months. Nigeria's petrol import from Malta surges by 342% to $2.08 billion. TUC sees on May 1st, 2024 date for new minimum wage. And then we have responders recover 5 bodies, rescue 5 others in Lagos building collapse. NCS intercepts 7 containers of codeine syrup worth over 11 billion naira. And then we have Tinubu, Igbo, and others mourn the demise of Ohanaese's president at 82. Listed firms groan over rising OPEC 71% surge in energy costs. You can read that business news on page 18. World Hepatitis Day, hope deems for 2030 elimination target for deadly virus. You can read that, and I think it's also a time for those who have not gotten their vaccine for the hepatitis, or you should do well to please get vaccinated, get tested, and then you get to be vaccinated. More detail can be found in the paper, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On leadership newspaper, Senate vows to expose saboteurs in oil sector. Ohanaeze leader Nwayanwu dies at 82. 571 pharmacies, medicine shops shut down in Bauchi. The big story on the paper, protest states beef up security as Tinubu meets governors. Military DSS vows to resist violence, hijack of rally. I'm not averse to peaceful demonstrations, says Tinubu, then allow the protest to be peaceful. Protest won't hold in FCT, Wike declares. Protect organizers, TUC urges the government. Nigeria records fastest economic growth in 6 years in the first quarter of 2024. A report from Wale Edun, the finance minister. 5 die as building collapses in Lagos. We have capacity to conduct LG polls, an assurance from INEC, and that's all the news on leadership newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, we have 5 die killed in Lagos building collapse, 5 killed in Lagos building collapse, and 5 rescued. Data found on page 25. Lagos Calabar Coastal Road will be game changer, says the NIESV president. And on the planned protest, Defense Headquarters, DSS put men, operatives on red alert. Planners target change of government. NSA assures governors of security. And here we're seeing the DSS are saying the long-term objective is to achieve a regime change. The service will maintain peace and apply all legitimate methods to achieve this. And the Defense Headquarters are saying citizens have a right to peaceful protest, not right to mobilize for anarchy to unleash terror. Troops will act dutifully to forestall such ugly occurrences. More detail found inside. And we're seeing that inside the paper, the aftermath effects of protests on Nigerians. My concern, says Tinubu. Protests are concerning the protests as well. Monarch state rise against violent action. No room for protests in the FCT, says Wike. Shelve the planned protests, Kalu tells youth. Southeast Rep urges Igbo to shun the protests. More can be found on page 2, 3, and 29. Nigeria's economy growing faster on reform gain, says Edu. Debt service drops from 97% to 68%. Revenue surges, detailed on page 3. $10 billion lost to crude oil theft in 7 months, says Speaker Abbas. Detail found on page 7, and that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On Punch Sport Extra, Paris 2024 opening ceremony, where we have at least 8 hours to go. Let the game begin. 88 athletes showcase Nigeria's rich cultural heritage in 2024 Olympics officially and commences in Paris, where we have Amusan to be the flag bearer for the country. Truth Econ dreams UCL after opening poke account. PSG wants further slash in Osimhen's price. Onocha to be Transport most expensive signing. Falcons lose 1-0 to Brazilian Group C. Opener, it wasn't a bad match, Sele. I watched it, and I believe that the Super Falcons tried. They lost so many chances, so many mistakes, and we know that sometimes football is a game of luck. Although there was a difference in our possession, but it wasn't much. As at the first half, we were just 45%, and they were rather. Yes, 45 and they were 55, so we had like a difference of 10% in ball possession and all of that. But it was a nice match, and I do believe that it's just the opening. We have 3 more matches to go, and I believe that the Super Falcons can absolutely do better. Still on the paper, Olympics arena orders face tough table tennis battle. Inter United Pounder Wan Bissaka Dumfries swap. Details can be found on page 3. I'm still world best boost Usman. Madrid Rudiger sale. You can find details on page 8. In Olympics, Djokovic Nadal on collusion cause. Leipzig reject Barca's initial Olmo beat. Liverpool suffer Kubo blow. And we have Maresca defense Chelsea style after Wrexham draw. And that's all the news on Point Sport Extra.
Well, and that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sally.
And thank you to our viewers. Thank you to supporters. And thank you to the entire crew for making this program a success. We look forward again to doing this next week. Do have a blessed weekend ahead.